One site.
That's Aberdeen.
Maybe they only see the screen. Let me look here.
Now, where did that go? I wonder. Our PowerPoint's gone. Oh my gosh. She's so calm. And I wonder where that went. Do you suppose it's in Pierce? Does it sleep? Why is that low? Did they say because there's 10 sites that I need both?
There you go.
There it is. Tom knows what he's doing.
If they know we can hear.
Right.
Is that what happened?
What is wrong? Hold on.
Oh,
Jennifer,
That's pretty.
Target.
Corner of the room.
Always thinking.
okay, folks, this is Janet and Pierre. We're having a little problems with our camera. We'll get this fixed in a minute. But in the meantime, I'm going to make a roll call of all the sites. So please mute your sites until we call you, okay? Aberdeen, are you on?
We are, Janet.
Okay. Brookings, are you on?
Brookings here.
Chamberlain?
Chamberlain's here, Janet.
Great. Carmen and Huron, are you on?
I'm on.
Great.
Some nasty people.
Mitchell? Jessica, are you on? We'll come back. Rapid City.
We're here.
Okay. Sioux Falls.
We're here, Janet.
Okay, great. The Rehab Center, are you guys on? The Rehab Center, are you guys on? Thank you. Hey, Watertown, are you on?
Watertown is here.
Okay, how about Yankton?
Yankton's here.
Great. The South Dakota School for the Deaf, I think I saw you folks. You guys are on? Obviously you're on because you've got your visuals up on the screen. So you're on, correct?
Yep, we're on.
Okay. We'll check on the Rehab Center then, but it sounds like everybody else is on. This is also being recorded today for those who are not able to attend. I want to thank South Dakota School for the Deaf. They're doing our presentation for us today. So we've remotely added their site. They're going to do a follow-up training from our last training when we had the audiologist, and they're just going to now talk to us about some services. They're going to talk about audiology services, outreach, external evaluations, and educational programs, as you can see up on the screen. I'm going to turn it over to Kim Wadsworth, and she's going to introduce her staff, and then she is going to run it from there. Make sure you mute your sites until you want to ask questions or anything. And this is kind of an open forum, so feel free to ask questions as we move forward. Kim, do you want to take over?
All right, hi. We are very excited to have everybody here today to be able to share information about the South Dakota School for the Deaf and share about our services. First, staff, I want to have you introduced to the people that are here in the room today. We have 11 consultants in our state. We have some of them in this room today, and some of them are not able to be here, so we'll let you know about all of them. But we'll start right here, and we'll have them introduce themselves and what area they work in. So maybe some of you guys will recognize some of these people.
Hi, I'm Julie Delfs, and I work in the Highway 14 area, Brookings, and all the way over to Huron.
Hi, I'm Laura Skolton. I have Brandon Valley primarily, and then some little kiddos in Sioux Falls, Harrisburg area also, and then I go north to Arlington.
Hi, I'm Jody Schneider. I am Sioux Falls area all the way to Chamberlain on I-90, about 30 miles on either side.
Hello, I'm Cami Van Sickle, and I have the Yankton Vermilion area.
I'm Katie Grand from the Sioux Falls Voc Rehab office.
And I'm Julie Luke, and I have the Sioux Falls, Harrisburg, Parker, Lenox area.
My name is Naomi Mankin, and I have the Sioux Falls area, and then I have some other random areas too that don't make sense, like the.
Okay, good. Also, we have Eileen Anderson, and she's up in the Aberdeen area. We have 2 consultants in Pierre, Sarah Lingle and Carol Johnson. Carol goes north and Sarah goes south. And we have 2 out in the Rapid City area. Carrie Ruth is in Deadwood, and Nina Rinksmeyer is down in Hot Springs. So with those 11 consultants, we really work on getting those referrals and getting them out to the correct consultant so they can make really fast contact for the family and with other professionals in that area. Otherwise, I'm glad we're all connected again, and I want to start off by having 2 of our consultants who are deaf themselves share some personal stories with the group. Again, if you have any questions or comments, we would love to hear from you. We don't want to be doing all the talking here. We would love for you guys to be asking questions, okay? All right, and I will start with Naomi and Julie. I'll have you move up a little bit so they can see you here. And go ahead and start sharing your personal story going through school.
Okay, first of all, I wasn't identified with a hearing loss until I was 5. My mom, I think, was in denial. And once I started school, they did the hearing and vision screening, and then she had to face the reality that I was actually deaf. So I wore hearing aids, and by that time I was already talking, so they put me in an oral program in elementary school, and they had both signing and an oral program, and they weren't too strict about keeping everybody separated in that program. So, anyways, I graduated from high school around 1990. And my story is that when I was in high school, I had a deaf vocational rehab counselor, and his name was Mr. Alan Pine. And I can't say why he said this, but he said that he would not provide support for me because I would be pregnant and barefoot, so barefoot and pregnant by the time I go to college. So I did not go to college until I was 26. And by that time I lived in a different state, and I had a different work rehab counselor that was very, very supportive. And then I moved to Minnesota, and I had another real supportive vocational rehab counselor that helped me get my BA in psychology with a minor in deaf studies. So, I also made a decision last year when I was about 41 to have a cochlear implant done, just for the fact that I would always wonder if it would have helped me, and I still cannot understand speech without lip reading too well, but it has helped a lot, helped me understand hearing people better and enjoy music. So that's my story.
Good, okay, Julie?
And I'm Julie Luke, and I was born in Kansas City. My parents found out when I was 15 months old with the severe to profound hearing loss. But prior to that, my parents suspected that I had a hearing loss, kept bringing me to the doctor, and the doctor and saying I wasn't talking, I wasn't responding to sound. And the doctor said, well, it's my parents' fault because they weren't encouraging me to talk. But my parents kept at it. So finally, when I was 15 months old, we went to the University of Kansas, and the audiologist there identified me with my hearing loss. Immediately put hearing aids on, worked on speech. I remember the early birth to 3, people coming into the home, working with my family and myself. I was mainstream all growing up, had a positive schooling experience, had a wonderful deaf educator, itinerant teacher who came in the classroom before after school talking to the teachers. And I graduated high school in '98, and then I went to Augustana for deaf education because I wanted to do the same thing my itinerant teacher did for me. As far as my voc rehab experience, in high school I had a guidance counselor, and he was always trying to provide support and resources for me. But when it came time to go to college, I had a really good voc rehab person. It was actually a deaf one, and I did not know very many deaf people growing up. And so it was a interesting experience for me. She kept telling me, you have to remember you can do everything except hear. She kept telling me that, and I thought, why is she telling me that? I have hearing aids, I can hear. But she used sign language, and I wasn't used to that until college. So that I picked up the sign language in college, and that was definitely life-changing for me. So that's basically my experience.
Awesome, awesome. And as you can all hear, that it definitely takes a team, a really great team, to provide the services needed for our deaf and hard of hearing kids. The School for the Deaf serves children with any kind of a hearing loss, profoundly deaf, hard of hearing, unilateral loss where one ear is affected. So that's the children that we serve. And so everybody has their PowerPoint. Hopefully they printed it off or have it available. We're just going to kind of start through some of that there. But before we start with that, we also emailed out all 3 of our brochures. Okay? So you should have one brochure at the top that says our outreach program. Another one, our multidisciplinary evaluation services. And the other one is about the mobile hearing lab and audiology services. Now those 3 brochures have a lot of great information in it. The outreach program also has a list of all our consultants and their email addresses and their phone numbers for people to get in contact with. And outreach consultants love to talk to people. Vocal rehab counselors, audiologists, teachers, staff, parents, we love for you guys to reach out to us where we can be a support to you guys. So I'll let you read those at your convenience. And we'll just start in about what services and what SSD can offer you. So we'll start with Laura, and she'll give us some facts here.
Hi, everybody. So just to start off with, we thought we'd just give you a little bit of background information about hearing loss. Overall, about 3 out of 1,000 babies are born that are deaf or hard of hearing, and about 95% of deaf children are born to hearing parents. So that's a really interesting statistic when you think about many families not knowing about the communication options, about the technology, about how to educate a deaf child. There's just so many questions that families have when the child's born in a hearing family. Once we jump to the school age, about 131 out of 1,000 kiddos have some sort of hearing loss. And that's pretty significant because if you think about our schools, they're pretty much set up to be an environment we're really dependent on using our hearing. And the thing for deaf and hard of hearing kids is we really want to be making sure they have access. And so that's a huge role for the deaf educators and the outreach consultants to go in and really show and help educate team members about how we can make sure that these deaf and hard of hearing students have access to what they're trying to teach them. And then overall, as far as different areas that hearing loss can impact speech and language, it can impact social interaction, emotional development, and academic performance. And that's one of the things, too, for us as far as outreach consultants. We can help monitor some of those different areas and kind of help teams support kids in areas that might be identified of areas of need. Okay. Switching over.
Kim, this is Janet and Pierre. Do you want to move your PowerPoint forward as we go, too?
Oh, yes, and I have this handy dandy clicker that I totally forgot about.
All right, thank you.
For it and everything. Okay, there we go. Perfect. Thanks, Janet.
Okay. So So one of the things that the criteria for our program, and Kim kind of alluded to this earlier, that we're different than a lot of other places, is to be a client for South Dakota School for the Deaf. Really the only criteria is that you have some sort of hearing loss. And many times, as far as to receive special education services, if you can look to the right of the PowerPoint, school districts have a criteria as far as when you can receive services or be categorized as hearing loss or being categorized as deaf. And so based on the audiogram, and we won't go too much into that, but basically overall based on the audiogram and what the child's hearing level is, they can or cannot possibly get South Dakota special education services based on their hearing level. Does anybody want to add about that and go into that in more detail?
Okay. And I know that you guys had someone come and talk about audiograms last session, so hopefully you can read that audiogram. And if you have any other questions, feel free to ask or give an outreach consultant a call.
Kim, this is Janet and Pierre. At what hearing loss are they identified in the school districts as having a hearing loss? What percentage there?
What percentage of kids are identified?
No. You said that special ed does not identify all the kids. Are you saying that some with the mild to moderate are not served?
Sometimes those, if they have a unilateral loss where only 1 year is affected, or they have the mild hearing loss, sometimes we've encountered a school that says, oh, they don't meet the criteria because it's 35 to 69. But again, sometimes, even having a unilateral loss, a mild loss, we call that educationally significant. And it will definitely affect all the areas that Laura had just shared about.
And it's important to remember, too, that they not only need the hearing loss, but they also have to have some educational impact. They have to show that they're, struggling in some area before they can get services through special ed.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, we are partners in educational success. 3 years ago, the School for the Deaf did a strategic plan. But let me go back to 2009 when the School for the Deaf had a large program shift. And you probably all read it in the newspapers and saw it on TV. The School for the Deaf, it said closed. Well, no, we didn't close at all. We just have this program shift to we're mostly all outreach services. South Dakota still needs to have responsibility to kids who are deaf and hard of hearing. We are under the Board of Regents, and they've been really good to work with. And so 2009, we're mainly outreach. We'll get into some more programs that we have later, but right now just to think of that. But our strategic plan, 3 years ago, we decided our motto, our logo, our mission statement is that we're partners in educational success. So that, again, we're here to partner with all of you guys for any student necessary. We're ready to be of help, assist, attend meetings, talk with families. Also, go to our website, and we have the website listed there. Hopefully you've all been to the website recently, checked it out. You'll be able to see about our programs and services there. We also are on Facebook, and so we kind of challenge everybody to like us on Facebook. Also, we have a Pinterest site, and some people might think, what would South Dakota School for the Deaf need a Pinterest site for? But the site has really good language, listening, and speech ideas for therapies. So, and also for sign language. So, please check out our resources. We're working hard to build them up.
We also have information on self-advocacy on there as well, which is really important. So there's all kinds of information on there.
And we also on there on the website have our transition tab, and we're building that as we go. Katie and Naomi are part of that state PepNet team, and so part of their project is supplying information for our transition tab on our website. So that's growing nicely. We appreciate that. Audiology. You guys saw our audiology brochure. We have our on-campus site here in Sioux Falls where it's no-cost hearing tests for kids birth through high school graduation. They can just call the number that's right there and set an appointment. We also have our off-campus, which is our mobile lab unit that travels around the state. They are in the process right now of getting another mobile lab unit that's an all-in-one unit. The unit you see on the picture there is one that they pulled. So they're deciding they might keep that one at the other end of the state or something and have another one here. But it would be nice to have those out screening the kids. As of July of 2014, our lab has screened over 5,300 students in the school. So we're excited about getting out there and screening all the kids. We have an audiologist here on campus. We have another audiologist that goes out with the mobile lab and 2 audio techs. Our outreach services include referrals. We get referrals from birth to 3, from school districts, from audiologists, from pediatricians, from friends of friends. It's amazing where we get our referrals from sometimes. But we're always here, and they can always give us a call, and that student family name will be sent out to that consultant. So we love getting referrals. The Sky High curriculum is kind of our base curriculum that we use. And of course, you just never use one curriculum. Everybody is great about looking up all kinds of resources to use with our families and the school districts out there. But for staff education, we'll go out and do overviews and in-services of what it is to have a deaf or hard of hearing child in your classroom. And each consultant tries to connect with their school to get an in-service set up for each of their kids on their caseloads before school starts. We do encounter where some schools say, we got it, child's doing fine, we don't need that. We really try to encourage some kind of in-service because, some kids are on IEPs and, they have a yearly meeting, so people will know that they have a hearing loss. Then there's some that are on 504s. And we definitely encourage schools, if that child is not on an IEP, that they should at least be on a 504. Because otherwise the teacher may never know that child has a hearing loss of any kind. So that's some of the first things that we do. Once we're into the school and educate the staff, we'll troubleshoot FM systems, personal systems and classroom systems, cochlear implants, hearing aids, Bahas, talk about using an interpreter with a child, talking about sign language. So there is an assortment of things that we do with our staff. And again, those in-service trainings are priceless. We want to be out there and give the best practices for educating students who are deaf or hard of hearing. And we also want to make sure that the school and the staff are feeling comfortable. Again, going back to our motto is we are partners in educational success. So it takes a team. Another fun thing is no matter what the age, sometimes the kids will like to have a peer in-service. So we go in and we will talk specifically with the kids in their class. Let them listen to a hearing aid. Talk about what is an implant. We have lots of good videos. These gals here find wonderful resources to share to help peers understand the whole thing as well.
We also have done some sign language classes for some of the classes too. So not just the interpreters are only one communicating with the student, but hopefully some of the classmates can be picking up the sign language as well.
And that's always fun to see. Yeah. Okay, parent connection. Parent education. We have in-home visits. We'll go out to daycares. We go to wherever the family can meet because we really want to educate the family on the needs of their child. We want to share educational resources for hearing, speech, language, and listening. Many times in the school districts, they might be working on the speech and the language, but many times the listening aspect they forget to include in the IEP. And that's a very important part. We have classroom observations. The consultants will go out and observe a child in the classroom setting. Observe them at lunch, observe them in recess, observe them in the math class, and just to provide feedback to that teacher. Again, we want the teacher to feel comfortable. Also, we've had some groups where we might have 8 kids at a school. We have them all come together and do a social lunch so we can work on self-advocacy skills while they're eating pizza. And, seeing other kids that have hearing aids or seeing other kids that have implants, because that's powerful. We also have our family functional sign classes. In collaboration with Augustana College, they'll come and some of their students will help with the daycare for families. We have our Deaf Teens in Action, which has a lot of transition topics. And I think this month, Naomi, your topic is?
Driving safely in the wintertime.
Driving safely, yeah.
DDA and course.
Okay. So all good topics. And they meet once a month except for like December and January. They get a break there. And you can see out in the hills, we have remote CI mapping. We have Dr. Jessica Messersmith from USD. She travels with some students out to Rapid City area, and they do mapping for students with cochlear implants. So that's been exciting. We are doing some of that here in Sioux Falls too. But working with USD has been a lot of fun and very valuable. Again, we really want to provide a lot of social and educational opportunities. So the girls in Peer will encourage them to do a family activity with their kids that are out there, getting the families together so they can network. Here in Sioux Falls, we get people together. Out in Rapid City, they've done hockey nights and pottery to paint nights. When you bring, 10 teenage girls together and they all wear their hearing aids or implants, it's pretty impactful for them to meet each other and to say, wow, I'm not the only one that wears a hearing aid or implant.
I have something to add to that. Growing up, I met a deaf group in 3rd grade, and then I never saw anybody again until I met that voc rehab counselor. So if you guys have any deaf and hard of hearing kids on your caseload, encourage that. Ask the families if they know of any other deaf and hard of hearing kids. It's really important for them to make those connections.
Okay, great. External evaluation. That is something that we do. We also have that brochure that will share more details with you. But last week, we were to have 4 families come to campus for evaluations. Again, they work with the school district and the family, and they come here, and we have a psychologist that we got a couple years ago. He's worked in deaf ed for 30 years, and so he does the cognitive, social, and behavioral. And in fact, his office is out in Rapid City area. Dr. Stephen Green. Academic testing, we have Julie Delfs and Jody Schneider and Kemi Van Sickle doing some academic testing. And speech, language, listening testing, we have Laura that does that, or Krista Halseth. And audiology, we have Sarah Zellmer here on campus doing that. And transition goes to Naomi. So if the child's old enough, they'll have transition testing. So it's a full arena eval. Okay, talking about our 2 programs. We're all outreach, but we do have one small auditory oral program that's out in Brandon. And we also have a small bilingual, bicultural program that they use sign language out in Harrisburg. Okay, so just to know that those are 2 of our educational programs. Questions? Everybody still with us? All right. Okay.
We have to offer ASL assessments.
We also offer ASL assessments too. Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you, Julie. That was not on there. We'll have to update that slide. So those kids who do use ASL will come in, and Julie will run them through an ASL assessment to provide or see where they're at, and then give recommendations for goals. Thank you. Okay, now we're going to talk about technology. And ear gear is cool. All right, so we try to encourage all our students to think that.
This is Jody Schneider. Just kind of put a few examples of some things that are available to our students behind the ear, in the ear, and in the canal hearing aids. Sometimes you will hear them called VTEs, ETEs, and ETCs. So it's just some different little lingo that you may run into and go, I don't know what those acronyms mean. So just so you're aware. Next slide.
That up on there, this is Julie, is a picture of a BAHA, bone conductive hearing aid, and the cochlear implant. And both of those are surgically implanted by a doctor. And then the next one is the ComPilot. And this ComPilot is something that's become very popular with students that have cochlear implants and even hearing aids with Bluetooth, because they can connect it with their TV, their phone. It's just a mobile device so they can have a better connection with the world.
Can I just add, if you see somebody with a hearing aid, cochlear implant, BAHA, don't assume they're always hearing you, when you're talking with them, or they're hearing in the classroom just fine. And there's ways to check on that. So just make sure the team's on board, just to make sure that the student's understanding what's going on. Hopefully the teachers are doing daily checks to make sure that their hearing aid or the equipment is working. A lot of schools will put that on the IEP. There's a daily comprehension check or listening checks to make sure all of that's working.
I want to add too that when you look at an audiogram, if it looks like they're in the normal hearing range, it's not necessarily telling the whole story, because my implant now is within the normal hearing range, but I still don't understand what I'm hearing. So sometimes other people, kids or whatever with implants, will probably have the same issues.
This is Janet and Pierre. I have a question on kids who have cochlear implants. Are you seeing a lot of the kids who have cochlear implants also learning ASL, or are they going into primarily English audio type of classroom settings?
Well, in South Dakota, we have our auditory oral program here in Sioux Falls, but most of our kids are going into a mainstream classroom primarily. And the big goal of us as outreach consultants, we really want to be monitoring. Remember at the beginning of the presentation, we talked about areas of development. One of our things too is we want to be able to see kids improving in all of their skill levels. And a while back, there was kind of a philosophy where kids should probably only use oral language. But now we've seen over some time that there are some kiddos that when we're monitoring those areas of development, there is that potential that some of those kids would benefit from also some sign language. So a few years back ago, I would say they were primarily mostly oral. Now we're seeing a resurgence of adding that sign because we've watched some of those kiddos as far as their development. And not all kids, not one philosophy fits all kids. So we're really teaming with people and watching that development and hopefully adding necessary modalities if we can.
Primarily, though, the school districts that I see are oral classrooms. We have a few kids in the state that have interpreters, but primarily we're seeing oral. But we're really trying to encourage our new little ones to use a little bit more sign, much more sign, and utilize interpreter services as they move into the school districts.
But like you guys all said, and Naomi said, just because they have that cochlear implant on or that FM system on, and unless it's checked, they don't know if it's really working for that child or not. And sometimes they'll say a cochlear implant, oh, their child's doing fine. No, we want to make sure. And some of those kids definitely use that interpreter as they get older.
Sometimes students will use an interpreter for their receptive skills. So, for example, if kids with cochlear implants or hearing aid, they'll just watch the interpreter just for their receptively understanding, but they'll express themselves oral. So they'll talk instead of signing. I don't know if that makes sense, but they're getting the information slowly with their signing.
Thank you.
Okay. Oh, go ahead. Okay, the next little section is on personal FM systems, and we have a very powerful YouTube video that we'd like to share with you just on the impact that an FM system makes in the classroom. Make sure your speaker's on.
Guys, welcome back. Monday morning. Hope everybody had a great...
There you go.
Why is it do?
On the student to tell you if it's not working. Look for visual clues.
Guys, welcome back. Monday morning. Hope everybody had a great weekend.
For a child with hearing loss, no matter how good the technology is, they're listening through a damaged auditory system. We need to help them to hear what's happening in the classroom. If they don't hear the teacher, if they don't hear the questions and comments from other kids in the classroom, they're going to miss a significant amount of what happens, and that's not fair to them. We have to remember that classrooms are very noisy places. For a child to hear well in the classroom, we need to give them some special assistance. The first example we're going to show you today is to help you understand what a child with a hearing loss hears in the classroom with an FM system and what he would hear if we didn't turn the FM system on.
So let's get it going.
The teacher in this classroom has forgotten to put on his FM microphone. Without the microphone turned on, it's almost impossible for a child with a hearing loss to hear clearly. Let's listen to what a child with a hearing loss will hear with the FM unit turned off. Without an FM system on, the child is going to be hearing very muffled speech, or like they're listening from a very great distance. Forgetting to turn on the FM system can happen to anybody, but don't count on the student to tell you if it's not working. Look for visual clues that he's confused, or watch the student trying to look around to see what's happening in the classroom. After a quick check, the teacher can turn on the microphone, check with the student, and make sure that all is working well.
Okay, good.
That gets the student back on track and gets the lesson going in the right direction.
We sounding okay now? Okay. So
once the FM system is turned on, the student is hearing as if the teacher was standing right next to his ear.
Generated a list of which jobs were important to know geography.
Making sure that the FM system works is the responsibility of both the teachers and the students. The students are responsible for advocating for themselves and should be encouraged to say something when the FM system either isn't working or is working poorly. As long as they can hear, they can compete. When there's only one microphone, we know the child will hear the teacher clearly, but they also need to hear the classroom discussion. If there's a pass mic, this microphone can be passed around from student to student, and then all of the students will have the opportunity to speak into the microphone, and the child with the hearing loss will hear everything they're saying. If there isn't a pass mic in the classroom, it's the teacher's responsibility to repeat what's said so that the child with the hearing loss knows what's happening. That means repeating the question if a child asks a question, or repeating what the kids say in their comments. Listen now to how other students' comments sound to a student with a hearing loss, and how disorienting it can be for a child when the teacher forgets to repeat the comments or the questions.
So who's got the next one? Who has another good idea? Aaron, what's your idea? Okay, yeah, it's funny, but that's a good one. Because you're going to be traveling a bunch of different places. You're going to have to know.
By continuing with the class and not repeating the other students' comments, the teacher quickly loses the attention of the child with a hearing loss. Let's hear again just how difficult it is for a child with a hearing loss to hear his classmates.
So let's talk about another one from someone's list on Friday that we had created. Who might have a good idea that we haven't talked about yet? Okay, Aaron, how about one from your list? Okay,
you see
that's
how
a good one.
important it is for the teacher to repeat the comments of other children in the classroom so that the child with a hearing loss can be a fully productive member of the class.
So Aaron just told us rock star. What do you think? Because as a rock star, you're going to be traveling to a bunch of places.
The two reenactments you just saw are two simple steps that can happen in every classroom to help children hear better. It's something that needs to be part of every educational day.
Okay, this is Cami talking. So, hearing aids and cochlear implants and Bajas are wonderful for some of our kids, but they also pose some problems in the educational setting in that they amplify all sounds, or they struggle. It's hard to listen to them through them with background noise. So the FM system, I don't know if you guys have had experience with FM systems. They get rid of that background noise for the kiddo and they put the teacher's voice directly in their ear. As you can see, the only problem that personal FM systems pose is that if their other kids are talking, they might miss what they're saying. So that video was just really saying how important it is for the teacher to be repeating what the other kids are saying into that microphone so they're not missing out on anything. Another great feature that an FM system has is you can direct connect to anything. So you can direct connect to a computer, you can direct connect to an iPad. So instead of putting headphones on a kid with implants or headphones on a kid with hearing aids, they can directly plug a cord into the bottom of that FM system, and then the sound from the technology will go directly into their ear.
And I just wanted to add, I love that video that we just showed you, but that kind of looks like, if you don't really know hearing loss, that if you put hearing aids on in an FM system, speech sounds normal. And that's the one thing I want to kind of caution people. Even with hearing aids and cochlear implants, that does not restore hearing to normal. So these kids, even with an FM system, they're still having to work really, really hard because they're only getting bits and pieces of words. So the FM system is just enhancing, making it a little bit easier because it can be very, very hard work for kids to be filling in the gaps the whole time. So I love that video, but I do want it just to emphasize that their hearing is not restored to normal like it seemed in that video.
And with the kid, before they put the FM system on or before the teacher turned the FM on, with hearing aids, you would have heard more background noise, and all the noise would have been at the same level. So you would have heard a fan going, you would have heard a kid tapping their pencil, you would have heard a kid coughing, and you wouldn't have, the teacher's voice would have gotten lost in all that background noise.
I have one more thing to add. Did you see how he was not kind of paying attention? He was kind of looking up. Well, he was obviously bored because he was missing that information. So I have been to schools where they say, oh, that student doesn't pay attention, maybe he has ADHD. I would be very careful about saying something like that, because really, if you're missing what's going on, it's really difficult to pay attention. So kind of keep that in the back of your mind. And then up here we have the classroom sound field system. I don't know if you're all familiar with that. We just finished talking about the FM system where the teacher wears the microphone and it goes directly to the deaf and hard of hearing student's hearing aid or cochlear implant or Baja. The classroom system is a speaker that is set up in the classroom. Teacher wears a microphone and the entire class has access to that. It raises the teacher's voice amplifies it without having them raise their voice. A lot of our teachers like it because it benefits all of our students, not just a student who's deaf and hard of hearing. I have had some schools who get it for that student, and then the next year that student moves on to the next class where the speaker goes with them, and that teacher is always disappointed because they see the benefits for the whole entire class. And if you look at the numbers here, without it, maybe they hear and understand 10,000 words, but with it, that's an extra 5,000 words. That could be important vocabulary that they might have missed without it. So that is a really wonderful piece of equipment. And then we also have interpreter services for the classroom. Thinking about the interpreter's role in the classroom, the interpreter's job is to facilitate communication between hearing teacher or student to the deaf and hard of hearing student. And then the deaf and hard of hearing student, if they use sign language for their expressive language, the interpreter would voice what they are saying. So they play a very important role. And if you see the picture up here, the interpreter is on the right there, our right, and then the teacher's writing on the board. They're standing right next to each other. Sometimes interpreters will be off to the side, and so the deaf and hard of hearing student has to pick, okay, I'm going to look at the interpreter, but I can't see what the teacher is saying. So it's kind of important for them to work together and work in the same space so the deaf and hard of hearing student doesn't have to make that choice. Interpreters are not substitute teachers. They're not going to run out and go make copies. They're a very important part of the classroom, and they should be treated so. Anybody else have anything to add to that? Yes.
Our school has a really great foundation board. They're very supportive of the services that the consultants bring to their areas of the state. If you go to our website, check out the foundation tab. We last year had, I think, 8 scholarships. The year before we had 6 scholarships. So we have their pictures up there, and then where they're going to go to school. And so, we use that to encourage others. Look at this, Our scholarship applications are open to those that we have served on our caseloads, but that's an exciting thing, and hopefully the seniors are filling them out as we speak. Deaf community activities. The foundation has been great about, we have activities for our families. We love to invite the deaf community to come in. As many deaf community members that can come in, it's great for our families to be meeting and networking, other deaf adults in the community, talking with other families in the community. And the foundation is great for supporting, to provide the pizza or to provide, snacks for certain activities. They've also helped with a summer program. They helped send a child to a summer camp with our Hands in Motion. They've helped with other requests as they've come in. And again, they support family and student activities. The Shared Reading Project is something that we started here this year again. We had it in the past, but we got a grant with Sertoma Club. So they helped to start it, and with SDSD's matching funds, we did the Shared Reading Project. You can Google that online and find out more about that, but that's where we match up a deaf adult mentor to go into the home of a family and provide lessons on how to best teach reading to their deaf or hard of hearing child. So they go in with a book bag and a DVD and ideas on how to make this book come alive. And so they practice together the vocabulary, and that's been a lot of fun. Midwest Conference on Deaf Education, that is coming here to the School for the Deaf in June 11th and 12th. We are hosting it with North Dakota School for the Deaf, the Gallaudet Regional Center in Illinois, and the South Dakota School for the Deaf. We're all hosting it here together. So we have national speakers coming in, and right underneath there is the website, and it's almost done. It's not live just yet, so you guys are getting a little sneak peek information here. Our Facebook site is on and has a save the date. Again, June 11th and 12th is here at the School for the Deaf. We'd love to have everybody come in and learn more from others. And right now at our school here, we don't have any daily students on campus. But the month of July, we do have. Last year we had close to 25 students come in from around the state for our Hands in Motion summer program. And there's Teachers of the Deaf that teach that, and it's in partner with Parent Connection. They get a grant from the Department of Ed and Augustana College. And we have some of their teachers here that have taught that program. I'll let you share a little bit about our summer program.
It's basically a wonderful program because some of the students were even from Rapid City. They decided to come to Sioux Falls for about a week, and they had never seen another student who were deaf or hard of hearing. It was really valuable connection for the students to make with each other, as well as the parents. The parents could meet others as well if they're in more rural areas. We would have weekly themes, and with our weekly themes, we always had a field trip so that students can make those connections. Instead of just reading the book, they can actually experience it in real life. It's a wonderful, fun program, and we're very fortunate to be able to have it here at SSD.
The main focus of that program was to work on those social skills because we know that deaf, hard of hearing kids are behind their peers socially, typically. When I worked in the Sioux Falls district, I had a summer school classroom, and I realized the importance of having deaf, hard of hearing kids meet each other. They all were in their own little schools, and they had interpreters. And the first day of class, they all came in, and one kid was signing. And the other deaf kid looked up to their interpreter and was like, "Well, are you going to interpret for me?" They didn't understand that they could actually interact and communicate with each other because they were so used to using an interpreter. So meeting each other, learning to communicate with each other is so valuable.
What is the ages for this?
Ages is, well, we're kind of flexible now, so two all the way up to, 5th or sixth grade?
Okay. And so some of the older kids went to the Leif Erikson day camp for, I believe it was like a 2-week program with a teacher of the deaf to provide full access. So that was exciting. Any thoughts or questions? The first part here was about services in the School for the Deaf activities. And so that last slide there was information on how to contact us and how to call us for the free no-cost hearing tests or our mobile lab. Dr. Marge Kaiser could not be with us today. She is the superintendent of the School for the Blind and the School for the Deaf. But we send her greetings there. And if there's no more questions, then I'll turn it over to Naomi and Katie, and they can start discussing more about transition. Alrighty.
So, do you remember what I said earlier about my vocational rehab counselor? That he wasn't going to support me? Well, that was a big reason why I went on to get my master's in school counseling, because it was very important to me that another deaf person do not go through that they achieve everything that a hearing person gets. Part of the reason why deaf and hard of hearing kids have problems with transition is outlined by my team comments earlier, is that they are missing incidental learning. Kids learn from each other, and they learn from just overhearing information. So what happens is by the time they get to transition is there's a lot of gaps happening in all areas of their life.
The right one.
Laura had already went through the numbers with you. Another study by John Hopkins thought that maybe there's actually more deaf and hard of hearing people than initially thought. And that's kind of important when you're thinking about providing services for deaf and hard of hearing consumers, adult consumers as well. So again, what we want to see in transition is that all deaf and hard of hearing and deaf-blind students achieve everything that a hearing student can achieve. They need to be self-determined. We want them to be prepared for college or work or both. We need them to understand how to take care of themselves, just simple little things that we take for granted, like budgeting, how to fix a minor issue in the home. Yeah. Making sure you put the right light bulb in the right socket, because, I failed at that when I was a kid, and I burned myself there. And we also need them to be very knowledgeable about their hearing status. There are so many deaf and hard of hearing people that are not experts of their own hearing loss. And we can't assume that they know what they can hear and what they can't hear, because honestly, it wasn't until I started working here that I learned what I was capable of and what I wasn't. Because I had nobody to explain that to me. So we want to make sure that everybody knows what they can do. So there are, as you know, barriers to employment for deaf and hard of hearing people. And there are 4 main areas that the barriers come in. One is the stomach. I asked my coworkers how to pronounce that word earlier. I was afraid I'd forget.
I do the same thing.
Yeah. And physical, communication, and attitudinal. And please, at any point in time that you have questions or comments that you would like to share, feel free to interrupt me. Okay? Systemic barriers are barriers that are created usually unintentionally by a group of people or corporation or whatever that prevent someone from having full access to what's going on around them. For example, walking through Walmart, they might have an overhead paging system. You know, I always miss out on those great deals at Kmart. It pisses me off. Or, at gas stations, it wasn't until I got a cochlear implant that I learned that they play music at gas stations while you're pumping gas. They play music everywhere. Movies without captioning, Braille unavailable for the blind. So, the next is physical barriers. For someone with a hearing loss, dealing with poor lighting is an issue. If they are working in a factory setting, that might be a problem. Background noise, as you learned earlier, hearing aids and implants and Bauhaus, you don't hear naturally, you don't have the natural ability to discern and pick out certain sounds and decide that they're more important to listen to than other sounds. For acoustical environment, overhead paging system, warning beeps. I worked at a factory for about 2 weeks and the warning beeps were a problem because you don't hear them when they're driving by in their forklift. In thick accent. That is another issue when you have somebody with a mustache or somebody with missing teeth or the way they move their mouth is different. So those are all physical barriers.
I have a student that went to SDSU for about 1.5 years. And one thing that they noticed when he went to the dorm was that they didn't have the flashing lights for the fire alarms. So that is one thing that the disability coordinator worked on in that dorm, was making sure that they installed flashers for the fire alarms so that he would know that there was something going on in case when he was in his room.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Communication barriers. Naturally, if the person cannot use speech to communicate, that would be a concern for a lot of hearing employers. Or even if they can hear with a hearing aid in their auditory verbal, there are still communication issues that come up. If you think about it, there are communication issues that happen between hearing people to another hearing person too. So, lack of information written in basic language. You can't assume that every person can read at a certain level. Sometimes it might need to be in a more simpler manner. Maybe they have low sign language ability. And again, barriers to lip reading. Attitudinal barriers are beliefs or assumptions that we all have with everybody at some point in time. I've been corrected on my own beliefs quite a few times, and but that can have a negative impact on a deaf or hard of hearing person's ability to get a job. And that's part of our job, is to teach them to be able to work at a job and then show them that they can do what they need to do. It's also really important to know that a lot of deaf and hard of hearing people themselves have very limiting self-belief of what they can or can't do. And so it's really important when working with them to help them change that view of themselves.
I add something to that? I think that's why it's really important for deaf, hard of hearing to have deaf, hard of hearing role models. So our students know they can grow up and be just as successful. I know that when I was little, I asked my mom, am I allowed to get married and have children? I mean, I never had seen another deaf or hard of hearing adult with being married or with children. I know I've heard of students who thought that when they turn 18, they'll die.
Yeah.
Because they've never seen another deaf or hard of hearing adult. So it's really important to expose them to the successful people who are just like them.
Very true and good point. I thought when I was growing up that by the time I turned 18, I would become hearing.
Yeah. I've had kids say that same thing to me too.
And I was heartbroken when I met my first deaf adult. And I was like, they're deaf. I'm like, so that means I'm going to still be deaf? So.
Also important to know that not all deaf, hard of hearing people have cognitive delays. So if their writing is different, maybe it's because they're signers and they're writing more ASL. If their language is not amazing, maybe it's because they were exposed to language late. So it's important to know that if their language is not right on, it might be because they were exposed late. It's not cognitive issues.
Thank you. So when we think about these barriers, we figure that into transition areas and transition goals that we want for our kids. And some of the ways that we resolve barriers include self-advocacy training, assertive training, deaf awareness training. We provide workshops and in-services training. I mean, there's a lot of ways to overcome these barriers.
And that's where PEPNET can come in too. If you do have students on your caseload, there's a brand new program that they developed called Map It. And a lot of these transition areas that are on this slide are on that Map It program, and it works it through with the student, and it's deaf and hard of hearing friendly. So there's ASL videos and just different ways for that student to access depending on what their communication style is. So make sure that your students are aware of that Map It for career development, self-advocacy, all of those skills.
Yeah, definitely. These are often overlooked during transition planning. It's just not something that people think about doing. We often assume that by the time kids graduate from high school, they will have all the skills that they need. And it's not true for hearing kids. It's definitely not true for deaf and hard of hearing kids. The more our kids master in these skills, I don't know if you can see the list, the better their chances for success in the workplace and in other areas in their life. These are just some of the skills that are often overlooked when working with deaf and hard of hearing teams. And this list is not it's not comprehensive. There are other things that need to be looked at as well. But just something to think about, like budgeting, how to write a check, how to use an ATM, what happens if you lose your card, paying bills, what ways can you pay your bills? Now you have the online option. You want to talk about something like that with them too. At home, changing the furnace filter. Nobody thinks to teach that or why until a mistake happens, and it's usually pretty expensive. How to save money, cooking, cleaning, taking care of a pet, and safety. One thing I noticed with my transition testing, is that a lot of times these kids don't have the skills to deal with safety situations.
Maybe we should explain why deaf, hard of hearing kids struggle with these independent living skills. Why is that? Because they're not picking up on the incidental learning. So they're not overhearing people talking about going to the bank and withdrawing money. They're not overhearing people discuss financial situations. They're not overhearing that. So they're not picking up on all that incidental learning that our hearing kids do.
And 90% of what hearing kids or people learn is what they pick up incidentally. So 90%, that's such a high percentage. If you think about 10% is what we are teaching them. So deaf and hard of hearing kids are behind that way because they're not picking up on those because they don't hear it.
Exactly.
Or see it.
Or see it.
So we need to make sure that they get instruction, direct instruction in all of these areas. We want them to have employability skills.
Naomi, going back to all need direct instruction, that's so true. And then many times we'll ask our deaf, our hard of hearing kids, did you get that? Did you understand that? And they just nod their head. So there's the head nod syndrome where just because they're nodding their head, they just don't want any more attention to them. It's best for us to ask them questions back to check their comprehension. And don't just ask yes or no questions back. Ask specific questions about what you taught them. And if they can give it back in their own words, then you as the teacher know that they have it down. But many times that you'll ask, did you get that? Yep. The head nod syndrome is alive and well.
So when you look at this list of employability skills, there are also things that we learn from listening to a parent talk about a job. So they need direct instruction in all of those areas and how to do what they need to do. A lot of their time is spent on education and spent on doing what they need to do. We also want them to be able to socialize and socialize appropriately. They need to have time to do hobbies and enjoy themselves, so we need to expose them on that.
And did you guys all know about the going to the movies? How even here in Sioux Falls, you can ask at where you get your ticket, you give them your driver's license, and then they'll give you a captioning box. And I'm thinking it's going to be this little box, right? But it was a little box, a little thing that would fit into your cup holder, and then it had this long metal wire. I bet it was bendable, 20 inches long with a little captioning box on the end. And so you go to the movie theaters, and it's fun for everyone to try it out. And that way you know what you're sharing about. But it works very well. I was impressed when I went and tried it out. So anyway.
I really loved that because it wasn't until my kids were in high school that I got to go to the movies with them and actually enjoy it. So we make a point to go to the movies at least once a month or every other month. We also want our kids to have meaningful community interaction. So like if they go to church, we want to make sure they have interpreters or FM or something. It has to be meaningful. Them going to a place and just sitting there and not having access to what's going on is not meaningful. It's isolating. So these are some of the transition tools that we use here. And there are others available out there. I like using the transition competence battery, Endurance Servicing, SSSQ, Riot True, questionnaires, and interviews. I don't know, do you provide assessment?
Usually the high school, the one I see the most is the Enderle-Severson, is the one when I attend my IEP meetings. But when we went to our last PepNet group, we sat in on that one. What was that one called? Do you remember? I haven't done a lot of research on it yet, but they're doing ASL videos
That
and
was the transition competence battery.
that's right, yeah.
That was it.
And that one's just coming out. It's through the University of Oklahoma, I believe, and yeah, they're doing ASL videos so that the student can take the transition directly themselves. There's 3 tests to it. There's the student, parent or guardian, and then the teacher. And it comes up with some great information and IEP goals.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be, talked about a lot more here soon.
It
That was the
definitely
first time I had heard of it, so.
Katie, this is Janet and Pierre. We've got some people in our office here that don't understand what your PepNet is. Can you explain a little bit about what that is to everyone so they understand what your PepNet work group was that you were on?
Yep, sorry about that. There is a group, four of us from South Dakota, Naomi, myself, Teresa Nold, who works with South Dakota Parent Connection, who is also the parent of a deaf student. And then there's Lance Sigdestead, who works for the Communication Services for the Deaf. Right now, he is currently housed out of Aberdeen. And what it is it's a group that is working on increasing employment outcomes for deaf and hard of hearing. So here's the website right here. You can there's a bunch of great classes. I've taken some of the classes on there. One was about assistive technology devices. One was about accessing resources at a post-secondary level. There's also, you can create an account for free, but it also has that Map It so that students, teachers can also access this. But that Map It is a brand new program that's great with getting students, how to perform in a job interview, how to be an advocate on a job for yourself, career discovery. It's just, I haven't been able to get through it all because we just learned about it at my last trip a couple weeks ago. But the little bit that I've seen so far, it's been great, and I've been getting it out to the students that I work with who are deaf, and telling the teachers about it too, in hopes that they can use this to kind of supplement the South Dakota My Life, since a lot of that is also on here, but specific to the deaf and hard of hearing students.
Katie, would you send that website link out to everyone so everyone has that, please?
Yep, because I will also, one of the projects that the PepNet group worked on was, everybody's familiar with the tip sheets that TSLP puts out. So we kind of adapted one specifically for the deaf and hard of hearing students getting ready to transition into adulthood. So we talk about, the Youth Leadership Forum, Catch the Wave, South Dakota My Life, some of those transition programs through PepNet. So that website's on here as well. We've got the South Dakota School for the Deaf. Mark your calendar, their activities that they provide, DRS, Project Skills, Self-Advocacy, SSI, so all of that. So I can send that to you too, Janet, to maybe distribute to everybody.
That'll be fine, I'll send it out.
But yeah, that's got that PepNet information on there as well. And then, we're working on adapting the transition tab that's on the School for the Deaf website as well. We've got something going on there now, but we're looking for ways to improve it, which is one of our next big projects now.
Okay, thank you. Well, I'll send out information to everyone on that. So sorry to interrupt your assessment tools there. You can continue on with that.
Not a problem. That's just fine.
It's been very, very nice. About 2 years ago was when we got the email about, hey, does South Dakota want to start, their own transition program, transition team for the deaf and hard of hearing. And it was like, okay, well, we got a hold of some really great team members, and it's been going great guns since then. They've been out to Washington, D.C., been out to Colorado, meeting other states, Chicago, meeting other groups in other states that all work with deaf and hard of hearing students. So it's been a real learning and fun adventure for, at least I know Naomi for sure when we talk. But so it's nice to know that South Dakota has a state transition team for the deaf and hard of hearing. So.
And I didn't include the method on this slide, and I should have. But these are just some of the transition curriculum and resources that you could use. Outreach consultants, they have access to lesson plans that could be used for, what's it, 9th, 10th grade, or 11th grade, I can't remember. I included the transition skills guidelines that went with the PowerPoint, and if teachers followed those guidelines, they would address all of the gaps that I mentioned earlier that deaf and hard of hearing kids face in their transition needs. Deaf self-advocacy, the website is all included on the slide. We like to use Minnesota Guide to Transition for teachers of deaf and hard of hearing. That's pretty helpful as well. We also use GAP, which is created by Phonak, a hearing aid and FM company. And then another one is advocacy in action. And that's another one that's really good that we use and we share with our schools. So, and that's it for my part.
Well, and I just kind of wanted to quick add some of the services that Voc Rehab can provide in case you don't have a lot of deaf or hard of hearing individuals on your caseload. Some of the things that VR can help with is deaf awareness training on the work site. I had a client that he could not hear anything, but he could voice. And so his supervisors and his coworkers assumed that meant that he could also hear. So there was a big block in the communication with him. They didn't realize how important it was for him to use interpreters when speaking, or even just letting him read your lips. So we contracted with Mark from CSD, who went to the site at a staff meeting, and he kind of gave a brief overview about different types of hearing loss, why people have different levels of hearing loss, gave a little bit about the deaf culture, taught him some basic signs to improve that communication, which it helped a lot, especially just making sure that his coworkers and supervisors knew to let him read the lips. Even though he could voice back, he still needed to see what they were saying instead of giving him instructions across the room, and then he was missing out. And then they were saying that he wasn't being compliant with his tasks because he wasn't doing what they were asking, but just something simple like that. Providing interpreter services for the first 90 days on the job, for interviews, trainings, meetings with staff and or supervisors. And as the counselor, making sure that you're working with that supervisor to understand that how to order interpreters, so that once those 90 days are up, it's just you're not leaving them to fend for themselves, but providing that information and that training ahead of time.
And I just wanted to interrupt with this. I just think this is just so important. I've been even in local stores here in Sioux Falls where I've seen deaf and hard of hearing workers, and people were giving them instructions behind them without access to the mouth, and I could hear the supervisors complaining about the workers not listening to their instructions. And so I felt like I needed to do some training on the job there called the manager, because it really, really does happen. And I have a deaf sister, and she did not get interpreters with her at her team meetings at her job and missed vital information and actually ended up in a lot of trouble with maintaining her job because she wasn't given access to the information that kept her employable. And they didn't understand that, you know, she couldn't get all that information through speech reading. And not all deaf and hard of hearing people, you know, advocate for themselves regarding their needs and might need that support from someone. I just see that so widespread. Another example, a manager calling my sister's phone and telling her that her shift changed. She's profoundly deaf. She didn't get that message and showed up late. So many of those different things are just so vital, and I just think it's so awesome that you guys can help out with those things.
Another thing that I've helped with on a job is equipment called the UB Duo. And what that is it's basically a laptop, 2 laptops that can communicate with each other. The gentleman that I purchased this for, he is also English as a second language. And he learned English and he became deaf due to a treatment. And he didn't have the skills or the confidence level to learn ASL. So everything was done by writing back and forth on note paper. And this was frustrating for supervisors, co-workers, and all of this. So what we did was we gave him, because he was utilizing a TTY, so he knew some typing skills. So we sent him to a typing class to work on increasing his typing abilities. And now he's utilizing this UB Duo on the job so that his supervisor can give him direct instructions on what he should be doing without having to sit there for 10, 15 minutes of writing back and forth when everything is right there on those laptops. That's a pretty cool system that is working great with him. Some of the supports at college that VR can help with is VR covers interpreter services, 78.7%. Janet and Bernie have a worksheet that you can put in to show what VR will reimburse the school. You have to work closely with the disability coordinator at the university to get this done. Right now I have 3 different students that I'm working with the different disability coordinators on those interpreter services. And another thing that we can help with is note-taking assistance. Since even with the interpreters there, the students are missing a lot of valuable information. So helping with that note-taking assistance. Right now the disabilities coordinators arrange this. They find students that are already taking the class. And their quality of notes have to be good. They don't just hire anybody. But then they do pay them for providing their notes to that student in the classroom. If the client doesn't feel that the notes are helpful, they have to communicate that with the disability coordinator who will look for a new note taker. But I've noticed that a couple of my students have said that's been very valuable to them, since it's like that one slide that showed when the teacher and interpreter are standing on separate spots of the room, they're missing what's being written on the board while they're staring at the interpreter and grabbing their information. So simple things like that. And that's at that 78.7% cost that VR shares with the school. And then assistive technology devices. I purchased a vibrating alarm clock for one student when he was in the dorm, so that he could get up on his own more independently. Talked about those strobe lights for fire and tornado warnings. The school took care of that. Dakota Link went in and did an assessment, and that is one thing that they noticed. And then the school was very good, very quick to correct that. And then also earlier it was mentioned about videos being captioned. One of the students that I worked with, his class relied heavily on a lot of videos, none of which was closed captioned. The teacher was very understanding and extended his assignment deadline so that she could find the captions, or at least figure out a way to get those videos to him closed caption so that he could get his assignments done on time and still get the grade, or not on time because it had to be delayed a little bit. Because it was just something she never thought of because she's never had a student that relied on closed caption. So that was one thing that the school and that teacher really worked hard on, was getting those videos closed captioned.
Katie, talk a little bit more about that, that two-way communication that the individual typed on.
The UB Duo?
The UB Duo.
Yeah.
I did receive some information on that not too long ago, and I'll be happy to send that out to everyone. But did you say you purchased that through VR for your?
Right. We went through Dakota Link to purchase it. It cost about $2,000. And what it is it looks like two laptops, but the only thing you can do is communicate back and forth. You can't get on the internet. You can't like write letters or different things like that. But it just basically communicates with, I think if somebody else has their own pair of UB Duos, the four of them can communicate, but you can't communicate, like I said, with the internet or anything like that. But if the supervisor is in their office and the person is working in the back warehouse and they have that set up, then they would be able just to look over at that UB Duo and see that the supervisor is typing something, because it's live time. So as you're typing, that the other computer is automatically reading what is being typed. You can save the conversations and download them on a USB to be used at a later date, if need be, especially for training in the beginning of a job. Obviously, we don't want this to be replaced for interpreters at meetings and things like that, but just for that daily communication piece of, this is what I need done today, it's working really well. In his case, because he doesn't use ASL, there are no interpreters, so they utilize that more. But I know there was another individual that was using this for communication needs, but he still needed that interpreter for meetings and things like that. So
yeah, right. This is more for,
it's not to replace at staff meetings, but just for that daily communication piece.
It's more back and forth communication between two individuals, correct?
Right. And Dakota Link took care of the ordering it for me and got it sent directly to my office. I didn't have to authorize for any services because it's very simple to use. I mean, basically all you got to do is charge it and turn it on, and it automatically starts working. So there was really no services. It was just the AT devices to Dakota Link, and Patrick and Paige with Dakota Link were, great to work with, and got it ordered pretty quickly. The first one did not work, however, so we did have to send it back and get a brand new system, which happens from time to time.
I'll send that link to that information out to everyone so that you're familiar with that technology as well. Also, too, for everyone's knowledge and information, if this person that you're working with is not a VR consumer, a lot of these services are also available through the communication assistance services through CSD. We do contract with them to provide advocacy and peer support. So if you're working with a transition age a kid that is not out in the job market yet but needs some peer support and working with a deaf mentor, we can link them up with that. And I think most of you consultants at the School for the Deaf are aware of those services, correct?
Correct. Yep. We like to team with them and work together best we can for any student.
And they can also go out to schools and do presentations to the schools, as well as team up with you to help you do any of that you need.
Right. No, we work with them often.
I thought you did. Thank you.
Can you qualify for for voc rehab services if you're on a 504 plan?
Yes. But if you have no plan, IEP, 504, nothing, can you still get?
Our eligibility requirements for voc rehab are different than SPED services. So yeah, we would take an application, and our requirements are a lot different than special education. And right now, we are trying to get more of those 504 students. So yeah, contact the VR counselor in your area.
How old do you have to be to get the rehab services? When does that start?
We can't start providing services until 16 or older, but we can maybe start meeting with the student ahead of time to provide guidance and counseling, information and referral.
So what would be the typical thing that you would start at age 16?
Project skills would be one. And I'm going to explain some of that here in a little bit to you guys after the DDN.
I think we need an in-service for them to tell us what they do.
We said about 15 minutes, yeah.
So
Yeah, so
definitely,
I
we
planned on
definitely
staying a
want,
little longer to explain some of the things that we do.
What did you
so we
say,
definitely
Janet?
want referrals. I said we definitely want referrals, transition aid referrals.
So you'll be able to share with us
Yep,
afterwards?
I'm going to stay and share. Yep.
Perfect. Any other questions about anything related with the School for the Deaf? Well, we've enjoyed being able to share, so thank you very much.
Thanks, Kim. Thanks, team.
You bet.
Bye.
I want to put us on mute, Kim.